Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first INSO's It's a Vibe community vibe coding session. It's a really cool event to be hosting today. It's slightly different for me. I'm by no means a vibe coding expert or a coding expert in general, but I have been using vibe coding for the last 6 months or so, and it's been really, really good for me. Like as someone who's technical and loves building and creating things, for me, I describe vibe coding as like I've spent my whole life looking at Lego and guiding others to build what's in my mind or a project we're working on. And when I say others, typically that's developers. But for the first time in life, Lovable gives me arms and I can actually play with the code myself. I can take an idea out of my head and build it into reality very, very quickly. And for me, that's just an incredible tool. And from an innovation professional perspective, it's an incredible prototyping tool to help clients do exactly the same thing. And I know a lot of people are playing with it. It's a very emotive subject in the technical world. Developers potentially fear it replacing them. Some people say it'll never get to a point when it will be reliable enough to release products. There's a whole debate on that at the moment. But for me, I just like it as an extra tool. It's helping me learn and it's helping me be more creative. And there's plenty of tools out there. I use Lovable. I haven't explored with other ones. I hear Base 44 is great. Some people have recommended some other tools. I know I think, Claude is apparently great at coding, but I haven't tried that. And I'm also exploring now with using AI browsers that have embedded agents alongside a Lovable. I haven't quite got that working as I wanted it to yet, but essentially layered AI to help me get what I want out of it. That's the purpose of the session, for us to build something, come up with an idea of something. It doesn't really matter what that thing is. We're just going to build it and get hands-on and just play around with it. We've got a bunch of credits loaded up on INSO's account, so let's just have fun. I'd like quickly now to pass on to Alex, and then if everyone can just give like a 30-second introduction of themselves, who they are, what they do, what their experience with AI is, and if they've touched on vibe coding or Lovable or any other kind of AI development tools before, that would be great. So over to Alex.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. So I'll be taking more of a technical backend lead on today's session, just helping out with any kind of issues. But nonetheless, I mean, vibe coding is, as you guys know, such an awesome medium to be able to just test and ideate so fast. And I mean, for anyone who's still skeptical about it, the rate of progress that we've had with AI agentic browsers and vibe coding, whether it be Cursor, Claude Code, Lovable, Base 44, is just epic. And I mean, when you guys go home and play around with it today, I'd advise, I mean, you've only got 5 credits, but it's so cheap now. It's about, what, £20 for 100 of them. So that, and just make like 4 Google accounts and you can just remix and build on any project if you're just a little bit consistent about it. Dan's built some really, really epic tools in, a month. So it's a great platform to kind of get going on. Who's next? We'll go Manuel.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. Hi, Manuel. I've been in Jersey 20 years this December. I been many things in my life. I started doing software development and product management for treasuries and financial services. And then I've done a lot of change and consulting, change and transformation. I've been using the likes. I'm trying to get a bit more into to assess how vibe coding and codecs, etc., can help progress projects faster, basically development projects.
Who's next? Pick someone.
Stefano.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Stefano. I met the Dan community a few months ago. It's always nice to meet interesting people here, and I joined this vibe session enthusiastically. I come from a long career in marketing and sales in FMCG. I'm now stepping into a marketing advisor consulting career, and I'm also focusing a lot into AI. I'm currently attending I live in Switzerland and attending a program that will certify me as a AI business consultant from the Swiss Federation in a year. So I'm here to learn. I'm here not only to be theoretical, but I really want to stay updated with all these technologies. I want to build a website with Lovable. That would be something I'm curious to see how I can do it today. And so, yeah, eager to start. And Doug.
Hey, thanks. Hello, everybody. I first started with machine learning or machine intelligence back in the 70s, but I've been doing various things in between, and I've been using LLMs a lot, but I haven't had any attempts at vibe coding yet, partly because I'm suspicious of it. Having seen what it does with drawings and completely messes things up, I sort of a bit skeptical, but willing to be proven wrong because I find AI very surprising at how clever it can be and how stupid it can be all at the same time. So I'm interested to see how this goes. And my big thing at the moment is setting up Factory 2.0, which is a reimagination of Andy Warhol's factory. Photography completely changed art, and AI is going to completely change the creative industries. And I want to use AI to help creatives rather than steal their IP and destroy their industries.
I think it's just Rob to go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm based in Jersey. I've spent 25, 30 years in digital marketing. So I ran my own agency. I sold that 9 years ago. Since then, I've been working as a facilitator and a coach for other businesses to either scale up or exit. And a number of my work groups focus on tech and creative and also AI. So this is a space that I'm continuing to play in, watch, follow. And one of my frustrations, bugbears as a digital agency owner was having to, I'm sorry to say it, work with a lot of coders and get what we wanted to do done. And as soon as things like sort of no code platforms like Webflow came along, that really opened the world to me being able to build what I wanted to without having to rely on a coder so much. And similarly, a lot of the process that we did as an agency with clients was trying to understand what a client wanted. And so we'd build an awful lot of prototypes. And in those days, they were handmade. And it's very much easier to prototype and visualize things now using tools like this. So I'm just fascinated in the whole lot and very happy to be here. And thanks for putting this on.
No worries, and it's fantastic. We've got a great bunch of minds here today, and really great to see very diverse experience. We've got some more technical than others, but we're all here with the same aspiration to lean into vibe coding. And without further ado, then I think we'd crack on then. So if what I figured, because not many people then have actually seen Lovable, what I'm going to do is just share my screen and give a whistle tour of the platform. What I'd like to spend the next 15 minutes or maybe even quicker than that so we can get into it is, what are we going to build today? Because it really doesn't matter what we build. The point is that anything we choose will be fun. And, let's not try and build a new complex trading platform, but let's do something more complex than a static website. So I always like to pick something with some sort of moving component, something with some slightly deeper logic than just a two-dimensional thing that we see, something that we want to, and we can stress test a bit, but something equally that we can all, rapid fire test together. Pretty much the world's our oysters. We can drop that first prompt into Lovable and it will build anything we say, and then we just iterate rapidly on that. So I'll share my screen. This is Lovable. Nice, simple UI. Essentially the way it works is you'll see we've got our account up here. And the very first thing you do, a bit like a kind of traditional Google search, is that you just stick in something in here as your first prompt. And then when you create that, all your projects will sit below here. And then you can also access things that have been released by the wider Lovable community for you to iterate on if you want. I think you can create clones. I haven't actually done any of this sort of stuff. I just build my own stuff. I haven't really kind of seen what's out there already. But a lot of projects getting released every single day. So that's the starting point. You literally just open up Lovable, sign in, get some credits, as Alex said, which are paid. You do get 5 free credits a day when you're on any subscription. And I think the lowest subscription is Lovable Lite at $15 a month. I think you get I think that might keep projects alive, and then you get your 5 free prompts a day. But as Alex said, I think it's like $25 for the pro subscription, which gives you 100 credits, which reload every month. And I like the fact that you get 5 free credits a day. It's also a genius move on Lovable's part because it keeps you wanting to come back to the product every single day to get your 5 free credits. And you inevitably end up using a few more because you just end up going down a rabbit hole. It's fantastic. So with that in mind, the next part of the session then would be, what are we going to build? So has anybody got any ideas or things that maybe would help them, like maybe something that we could use collectively that would suit all our brains and our experience. Throw it out there to the group. Any ideas?
I'm going to jump in quickly, actually, with one tip, which is Prompt Cowboy. So if anyone has used it before, great. But if you haven't, effectively, it just maximizes your Lovable credits, because a lot of the time what you do is you have a half-baked idea or poorly articulated one in the search bar, and then you end up getting something that you don't actually want. So yeah, Dan, I mean, you could probably just log in via Google, and we can try this actually, and then just copy and paste that into Lovable.
Can I get a free one here? I've never used this actually. Can I?
Yeah. So literally just log in via Google, and then you should be good to go.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah.
So it's a prompt to create a prompt.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's a good point. Like I always have. I've got a Perplexity Pro subscription. It comes with Revolut Metal. So I don't pay for that. Well, I do kind of through Revolut, but and definitely it helps to re-engineer your prompts through another AI model, because yeah, I get too human with AI, and my problem is that when I get frustrated with it, I start to express those emotions in the prompt, which only serves to make the prompt less effective. And using AI as a counterbalance always helps me with that. But yeah, let's try Prompt Cowboy. Okay, so we're in. So what ideas
I
have we
made
got?
I made a custom GPT for the same reason, but this seems to be much nicer.
Yeah. There's also something about, and I don't know, like what maybe experienced this during the call. I almost sense that there is obviously some sort of sentiment analysis behind the prompts. And so when I get frustrated, sometimes it does unlock the problem. Maybe it's just me kind of imagining that, but we'll hopefully come into what I call a death spiral of us trying to fix something, and it kind of reads some errors, because these are the real time problems that you're going to face when you vibe code. But let's take a step back. What are we going to build? Like something fun. Like I've built games, just like board games. My idea for today was that we build a board game because it's fun, it's easy, it's something that we can do. It's layered because there's actions and consequences and things like that. So, but it's not very helpful to anyone. So I assume no one's out there looking for a board game. But if someone in this audience has something that would actually be valuable to them potentially, that they can go on and maybe even use afterwards, then that would be more productive. But
Well, I think it relies on too much data, but I was a bit frustrated over here in Jersey. There was a service called Post Tag that allowed us to find. I do deliveries quite a lot for my wife for various reasons, and you can't, using Google Maps is a nightmare in Jersey because the postcodes are too big. So you can't actually find an address. What Post Tag did brilliantly was you could give a house address and it looked up, I think, some kind of database in Jersey where you could actually find the exact reference and it would give you a map guide to it. But I assume that's far too complex and we need the data.
probably a bit too niche for this
Today.
type of
Yeah.
call.
What are the kind of things that you can buy? Is this websites, or can you do apps, for example?
You can build apps. Like it's not going to be you're not going to find it on the App Store, but it essentially drops in a website. And I'm going to get onto the it's a web hosted app. You can show the rescaling through Lovable as well to see how it looks in mobile view, in tablet view, in desktop view. I've actually launched my first pseudo production, but it's only for me, live app, and I've now got it saved as a, through Safari. You can save it as a bookmark, but on your home screen, so it looks like an app, but it's just a web link. And I've built a Google login on that, so it's nice and secure. There's no kind of username, passwords that I store in the system. It's all authenticated by Google, and it works. It's great. So you can kind of make apps, but they're not like hosted on an app store. For example, I've built basic websites. I've built a tool with my 4-year-old. I basically sat down with my 4-year-old and said, "Hey, what would you like to see on this screen?" And she loves bunnies. And she said, "I want to see a real bunny," or like a robot. She loves robots as well. She was like, "I want to see a robot bunny." And I was like, "Great, that's a perfect project." So let's build the prompt was something like, "Build me a child-friendly bunny bunny avatar that we can control." And it spat out this bunny on us. It's like a 3D bunny that you can spin and move. You can then there's a chat bot below where you can type into it, make the bunny dance, and it will do that. And then I was like, but we want to make a background that makes the bunny look in different places. So I was like, we could make a background image generator that's text-based, and we say, add a seaside background, and AI generates an image, layers it over the behind the bunny, and then the bunny is all of a sudden dancing around a thing. I'm a big believer in kind of trying to bring things to life in a three-dimensional way. I'm an engineer by background, and I love CAD drawing. And I had this idea that data is very two-dimensional. Like we extract bits of data, but the underlying databases and tables are all very two-dimensional. They're Excel spreadsheets. What if we could try and combine those data points into a three-dimensional map, a bit like a neural network in our brains, and start seeing connections between different data points? One of the things I love doing at INSO is connecting the dots between seemingly unconnected areas. So I might learn something from someone in the film industry that connects to someone in the finance industry. And I like being that kind of catalyst. And I tried to build a brain, like a 3D brain that helped me visualize, and maybe use even the AI to help me connect some of those dots. I've built an AI agent who is monitoring my emails and is sending stuff and is monitoring multiple calendars, and is just a great kind of assistant for me. What else have I built? Pretty much you can build anything. Like we can go with absolutely anything.
Can
I'd
we
say
manipulate images?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I interrupt somebody.
Yeah, I asked, can it manipulate images that we upload?
I've never tried that. I've built very easily upload features. So like upload PDF, upload images. Now I don't know whether we can build an image editor if that's where we want to get to. Might be worth
Well, it's based on, I was just something that came, again, something I've had to experience recently was I have to, when you want a new driver's license or a passport, for me, I physically have to go into a shop and have a photograph taken for me in a studio environment, and they use a Polaroid camera. It's so non-digital, even though what we're doing is, provide. I just wondered if I could just take a normal selfie photo and it format it in the exact way that passports say, yes, this is what we need. So it gives you a white background, crops it to the right size, gives you 4 of them, and then you print that at home, and that's good enough for anyone who accepts them. Just as it, but again, it might be too complicated. Or
well, I don't know. I mean, my thoughts there are, why reinvent the wheel? Like I use Perplexity for image gen, and it's pretty damn good. So let's just, before we do that, let's just try. Let's just find, I don't know, let's find an image. I'm not going to use someone else. I don't know, let's find an image of me and Alex that we've got. Let's do me and Alex, why not? Let's do our photo. Open, so that's not a very good example potentially because we're already there, but so I've uploaded a photo of me and Alex. Take the man on the right and turn it into a passport photo. I don't know. Let's see what it does. This is just off-the-shelf Perplexity Pro. I actually really like Perplexity Pro for image generation. I know there's probably dedicated tools out there that can do that, but
Nano Banana's pretty good.
Yeah, I hear that one's, that's a Google one, isn't it?
It's Google's, yeah, Gemini.
So no, it's just made me look like some sort of weird AI man. Okay, but we go anyway. Okay, fine. Well, maybe Alex, what do you think?
Well, it's an idea, but it was just what popped into my head. It's just one of these things that just trying to solve a problem of very, going through all of these processes, and then you just want 4 photos exactly the same that have got all the rules, no glasses, white background, all of that sort of stuff. There's a checklist of things that you need to do.
To be honest, it is very doable. It's just you need to kind of break it down into bite-sized pieces, so almost into a flow. So you'll have one flow that AI removes the background, and then another that manually crops it into the right size. And sometimes if you give Lovable too big of a chunk of work, it just kind of freezes up.
You break it into the smallest components.
Yeah. And you definitely need APIs into external sources and probably local code as well.
Got you. Okay. Well, then that's not appropriate for today.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Alex said, I think it would be definitely possible, but I wonder if it's a bit complex for this, for this ask. But let's just, why not? Okay. I
think Stefano had an idea. We left him behind some time back.
Yeah, I mean, I was just a completely different topic. I was reacting to the story of the bunny from Dan. I was thinking whether we could invent an app that transforms a story into a visual story.
Ooh.
So imagine you write or you copy a story for a kid, and I mean every night I have to read stories or show videos on YouTube to my kid to make him fall asleep. I wonder if we can.
I like that.
That's lovely.
I think we could go with that. Okay. So, right. So, and again, what we're going to use here is the chat function within Zoom. So if I need help with generating prompts, I mean, I'll be the kind of the prompt lead, if you will. But please suggest any prompts. We can maybe each take a turn doing the next prompt, something like that, so we actually get hands-on and see how our prompts impact the system. But the first prompt, I think, is very important to design. And so in this case, what we want is we want to build an app in Lovable. Oh, it's going to know it's in Lovable because we put it in, and I'll put it in it. Alex, do you need to specify this? Will it convert this to a Lovable style prompt that converts a written children's story into what? Did you say, Stefano?
Into a visual story, into an animated or just
To a visual.
yeah, visual animated.
Okay, no, into a visual, into let's
Is it like maybe like a comic or something like that? Or
Yeah,
a picture
yeah,
book?
yeah, exactly.
let's go a bit more like a Notebook LM where it spits out different like things, right? So Notebook LM you can put in knowledge files and it converts them to like learning cards. If you're doing studying, it converts them into audio podcasts. So we can start with like the same source, which in our case would be a children's story written, and we can convert it. So that converts a written children's story into multiple formats, e.g. comic books,
Picture books,
animated cartoon, and I don't know, realistic movie. Don't know. Let's see where we get with that.
I'd say before you enter on that, Dan, a good trick here is to say describe it in MVP form. So what it then does is breaks this concept into ideas called minimum viable product, which is just all the components that make up the thing that you're trying to build.
see, that's the magic. That's what you got to know.
Oh, wait, okay. It's making a prompt.
Yeah, that's what we asked them. Is that not what Prompt Cowboy is for?
Yeah, but
I
okay,
think
if you can, we could probably put that into GPT now and say make a lovable prompt.
But this minimum viable product is something you prompted. Sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry.
I reckon, Alex,
Yeah.
for the purpose of today, let's just stick our core prompt straight into Lovable and see what it does. So that's prompt straight. Like we want to build an app, and we don't even say because we're in Lovable already. We want to build an app that converts a written children's story into multiple formats, e.g. comic book, picture books, animated cartoon, and realistic movie. We may, just because sometimes I like to think about the core infrastructure behind this, like it may just overly specify to those things we've said. We may add different formats in the future. And all I'm hoping there is that it builds a slightly more flexible infrastructure where we can add additional outputs later on. But let's just see what happens. That's the prompt. So you'll see here, this is the first time we've seen Lovable. It's thinking, and while it's thinking and it's doing this is normally the longest prompt it'll take. I'll just kind of quickly show you the UI. So up here, it's come up with a name. It's called Story Weaver. We can change that later on. But when you click this up here, you can see your all-important credits up here. You'll see the 5 free daily credits there. Very good for me.
What does 5 credits actually give you?
Yeah.
Well, 5 credit, we'll see how much this bites now, right? So if we asked it to build something incredibly complex, it will use more credits. Now, Lovable went through a, oh, have I just got rid of that? No. It will still work if it's fine. Lovable went through a change a few months ago where it introduced agent mode. And before that, every prompt you gave Lovable used 1 credit, whether that was a simple prompt such as change the title of this piece of text, or build me an entirely new feature. And that was great in many ways because you could try and kind of get as much bang for your buck by trying to put multiple tasks into one prompt. But I found then that it just confused it, and it's definitely easier to build in bite-sized chunks. So Lovable introduced agent mode, which now uses prompts based on the complexity of the task. So if you do something simple, it will use 0.1 prompt, which is great. You can make 10 minor changes for one prompt. If you build something more complex, like the start of this is going to build the core infrastructure, then it's probably used more than one. And it's still editing. And so the chat on the left here will show you your prompt, and it will show you its output. So in this case, I'll create a beautiful story transformation app with a playful yet modern design. I guarantee it will have gradients because it loves gradients. And it gives you this. Okay, so we've seen our app for the first time here. It tells you its design approach. And to be honest, as I start using this, I rarely read that on the left. I just kind of go. But the feedback it gives you on what it's done has got a lot better. But agent mode means that the prompts will be unknown. So we could burn through 105 prompts very quickly, or if we're quite small with our changes, that 105 prompts will last a long time. But in this case, because it's stopped moving now, I can see here that it's used some prompts. So in that case, I mean, that's pretty good, right? It's used 1.9 prompts to get us to a starting point. So it's not hoovering up prompts at a rapid rate. That's pretty damn good. I mean, I like my personal tip so that I don't go down a vibe coding build is I tend to just try and use the five free daily credits, maybe a few more just in case there is a kind of like a half-baked thing that we're so close to solving, and maybe a couple of prompts will get me there. And I try and stick to maybe like 5-10 prompts a day of usage. But 1.9 prompts to get to our starting point, I think is fantastic. So agent mode doesn't,
You mean
doesn't
credits,
hoover up
no prompts, right? Then sorry.
Credits. Yeah, credits. Again, back to dashboard, which is our home point. So if we'd made like 10 projects, you can see them all here and you can access them very quickly. So this is where we control what happens to our app. This is the app in itself. It's in preview mode at the moment. If you want to look at the source code, you click this here and it shows you the full layout of what it's created for us. Again, I'm not a coder. I've had to delve into this a few times to try and basically when I've got like something that's going completely wrong, I copy and paste the code from here into the likes of Perplexity and I say, this is happening. I'm experiencing this. Here's the code. Please, can you suggest what I can do and change to make it work? And there have been a few cases where I've gone in and replaced code in here with code generated in another system. But just be aware that can then cause, if the code that I'm replacing in here is linked to other parts of the infrastructure, it can break other things. So I tend to use that very sparingly. But if you're a coder and a developer, you'd probably be far more competent at manipulating this. The point is that Lovable does give you access to every single piece of code it's showing you. So if you want to not be lazy and use a credit to change something as simple as here, like at some point in our app, it will say, watch as AI transforms your story into beautiful visuals. If I want to go in and add XXX there and save that, then it's going to change that without it using any prompts. So it doesn't force you to use prompts. It doesn't force you to use your credits, which is pretty good. So yeah, at some point here, there we are. You can see that my change has appeared immediately in the UI, and I haven't had to do that. Alternatively, I can tell the AI to do that, but it will use credits.
But this is just
the next part to note here is that
I was just going to say, has this built something that's functional, or is it purely visual at the moment?
Potentially, like it tends to build something that is pseudo functional at the start until we start asking it to store data and things, at which point it will start to automatically build a back-end database. If you want any form of AI to do something, it will try and hook up to Lovable's own AI, but I've got it doing like simulated AI responses for the purpose of testing, which normally meets the requirements. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it does as its starting point. You can also look at the back end of the cloud. So here you can, if we did have a database, which we'll come on to, we'll add that later on, but you can access all the database, and that's where you can see your API secrets and things like that. So you can check out these, you can add along the top things like analytics, cloud use, if you're using cloud storage, the code, all that. These are just quick links. Other point to note here is that
it's fascinating how without even a specific prompt, the image that he chose just to show up in this call it homepage of this app is amazingly nice.
Yeah. And if we'd said, but that's based on the fact that we specified it's children's, right? Like when I built my Magic Bunny for my child, it knew that it wanted to be child friendly. It knew that the UI needed to include child.
But the
Even
idea
the
of
image
the
generation.
But the idea of the light coming out from the book, which express the creativity, it's to me is amazing.
Good, right? You can check here along the top. You can switch very quickly into mobile view, kind of a desktop view, iPad view, so, which typically, you know, I've had to do before. I don't know. I'll just pull up. I'll pull up my thing I've built in Lovable. This is my agentic assistant. But yeah, for those that are aware, there's another way of doing that when you go to inspect, and you can check the different views there. So that, you know, you don't have to. It's cut out that friction. You don't need to. You don't need to go away and do that. It's built in there. You can flip it out into preview mode if you want to show your app in a designated tab. Sorry, my internet's being very slow for some reason. But yeah, it will start to show the app, which we haven't released yet. This is still us just building an app. We can publish it if we want, and then it puts it out there as a live app, albeit that comes with risks, right? But yeah, that while that's loading, this is the main page we work on, to be honest, because I just don't like bouncing between tabs and things like that. Like, here we are. This is what it would look like if we published it. So it's called it Story Morph, transform stories into magic. You can still see here that it's the preview version, the URL that's provided. You can go back to edit it in there, but that's what it would look like if we published it. And while I'm here, why not? I'll share the link in the chat, and
yes, thanks.
You guys should be able to pull it up as well. Right, so that's brief whistle stop tour. If we want to publish the app, you can add a custom domain. If you do own a URL, let's say we wanted to call this magicstoryteller.com, we could add a custom domain here. But Lovable does give you a free production domain, so which you can edit as well. But obviously, it just depends on that being free. So you could come up with something .lovable.app, publish it, and that's your live URL. So you don't need to buy a domain. You can just use Lovable's one, which I tend to do, unless you're building something. Like, obviously, if you were building a website, you'd want to hook it up to your own thing. You can add things like your icon that goes along the top. You can change the description of your website or your app straight in here. You can upload default images if you want it to show like a screenshot of what it would look like. You can share the link with different workspace members if you've got a business subscription and you're working on something. So it's a fantastically intuitive way to publish it. Another really important point to note before we publish anything is that Lovable has a built-in free security review, which I think is fantastic. And it's in this case, what we could do is we could update, and it's free. It doesn't use any credits, because Lovable obviously want to make sure that they're releasing great products that are secure. You can update, you can add context to that security review to say, like, I feel like it might be runnable in this area, and it will take that into account when it does its update. But we'll do that later on once we've got a little bit more depth to the app. And the good thing about that as well is anything it does pick up on the security review, it categorizes as urgent or kind of medium priority. You can fix individual items, or you can just say try to fix all. And any fixes it finds from its own security scans does not use credits. It's all free, which is fantastic. So there's no reason that you couldn't do. And it does claim to be kind of ISO. It meets all the different standards. I don't know. Like I raised the question with the group. Have any people paid for external penetration testing on Lovable product? And a couple of people have come back to me and said, we pen tested Lovable products and they were fine. Obviously, it's completely product dependent. If I built a product that showed everyone's data and showed all my API keys on the homepage, that's on me, right? So each product is different. The point is that it does take security very seriously into consideration. And if we were ready, we could publish here, and then it would basically make that URL live and accessible to the world. And also, if you remember, going back to the dashboard of Lovable, it would publish it on Lovable's kind of announcements of public from the community here, so that people could look at it as well and see all.
Okay.
So that's the kind of. You can also publish to GitHub if you are. I think that's an extra layer of complexity where I think that's probably more Manuel, probably correct me if I'm wrong, but GitHub is where we're going to put the source code and let people
Yeah.
build different strands off it and start to get a little bit more complex. And I think maybe at that point you could entirely desynchronize the product from Lovable if you were going to take ownership of yourself. I guess you'd want to do that via GitHub. Is that true?
Yeah, you could. I mean, GitHub, you will use, it's a repository for code, basically, and for documentation about the code. So yeah, you can do, if you are going to take whatever Lovable has created and then take it as an independent tool or independent website, are you going to keep maintaining it yourself? It would make sense to put it into GitHub.
Okay, like that. Full disclosure, I haven't ever done that with a project. That's something I would like to do. Someone recommended I do that with one of my tools. So it's something that I will kind of dabble with later on. And then, of course, you can invite different people in. You can upgrade to enterprise. Of course, they want you to do that. But this is where you're going to potentially have a big team all working from a centralized Lovable account. And you can share projects or keep them private. So that's a very
I was going to say, what I'm interested to see is how you modify this now, because that's having AI generate something is relatively easy usually. Now, how do we tweak it?
Cool. All right. So that's on to the next part, right? So this chat down here is where you're going to do everything. Basically, you're going to, this is the magic. So here you're going to do, we could say very basic prompt. There's multiple ways of doing this, but I could say change the app's title from, I like to specify so it doesn't kind of, to transform stories into magical moments, something like that. It doesn't really matter. So you can see it's editing now. And there we go, and it's made our exact change. Now, for anything stylistic, I actually prefer this mode here where you go to visual edits. You select visual edit modes, and then you can specify the item on the thing that I want to change. So if I want to change this, instead of describing where that is or sending a screenshot, you just click it as an object on the page. And then you can do, in fact, before I do this next change, how many credits did that little change use there? Yeah, so that was what were we on before? So that we're now 2.5 credits in to create the app and make that change. I can't exactly remember what it was before on that, but if I want to make this change here to your story, I could just do specify here. So again, I'm being a little bit more specific. Change to your favorite story. And then it's going to make that, it's going to be very specific. You can see here on the chat, it's changing this specific label. And that's a much, much better way to control changes stylistically, as opposed to just saying, change your story, because we don't know where your story might be applicable elsewhere in the app. And I just find any visual or UI edits, make it specific using visual edits here.
Okay. So can you ask it, for example, to allow you to upload a file, upload the story, or so to be able to choose to either copy there or upload a file with the story?
Yeah, we could add, let's do that as the next feature then. So if someone can concurrently just create a story in a PDF and drop that in on the chat. Or Alex, maybe if you could just create a very quick story, just an AI prompted story into PDF while you're doing that, and email it to me. While you're doing that, I will add the feature of adding a story in here. So you can see here that it's made that change directly. You can also switch to chat mode. So by default, everything you say in here typically will drive an action. If you want to just talk to Lovable without making a change, so you can click chat mode and say, let's plan how to improve this app. This is going to come up with an action plan that you can then choose to perform or not, but without, when it's chat mode, you're going to protect the kind of the thing that you're building, which I find sometimes quite helpful, especially when you do go down a bit of an AI rabbit hole or a vibe rabbit hole where you're making a change and it just seems to break everything else around it. Sometimes putting chat mode on and getting it to kind of say, like, what's going on here? Like, how can we do this better? So in this case, it reviews the app. It says, yeah, so there's a perfect example where it noticed that we had XXX that was out of place. It said that should be cleaned up. So it's coming up with recommendations how to improve it. And it comes up with a step plan here. It's already anticipating the fact that we're going to need to store some data. So it's saying create an edge function, which is talking about creating Superbase, and I'll come on to that later on. It's anticipating the need for a results component. Yeah, so it's really good. We can say, and then again, you can just say, just do it, or just go, or just do phase one. I'm just going to go, this is a wasted credit, like I'm being too conversational. Let's park that for now. It doesn't really make any sense, because if I don't say to do something, it actually knows. But in fact, yeah, let's just go with that. It's stupid.
Can you ask it how much to do all of that would cost in credits? Would it be able to calculate that?
I don't know. I've never asked.
That's a good question.
How many credits would the full implementation use? It's a good one.
Can you buy additional credits, or is it just what you get per month on a?
No, you can. Like, I scale my my membership all the time. So like, if I'm building something, obviously I use more credits, and then once that gets to a stable point or it's parked, I use yes, I cannot accurately describe. It's fine. But if I want, let's say we'd burnt through these 100 credits. It's going to tell you when you've burnt your credits, and you basically just update to the next band of credits. It then immediately gives you the next 100, say, and then what I do is as soon as I've paid for those, I just downgrade my subscription to the thing that I'm happy to pay monthly.
Another thing you can do is sometimes you come into specific issues which are quite complex. So you take that into Claude or Gemini or whatever it may be, and you troubleshoot there. And then you go back to Lovable and you say, this is the base that I'm thinking around, and then we'll iterate based off that code.
Yeah.
And if I'm being really diligent on this project, I would create a dedicated perplexity space, and I would call it, like, why not? Let's just do it now. I would call it like, it's a vibe project, because then I'm going to start to help me get the most from Lovable project.
So the idea of using an AI browser like Atlas whilst running Lovable, you could be saving credits by getting ChatGPT to see the contextual what you're actually building and make sense of it, and help you be more efficient with your credit use. Is that?
I think that's entirely true. And essentially the AI browser is going to be doing what I'm just doing now. My muscle memory just kicks in to use the space in here. But so here's where we are so far. So again, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'm just literally going to drop our chat history that we've built into this, just to give my space as much information as I know. And it is coming up with 20 to 50 credits, but I think that's I've never had an action take more than 5 credits, and I've done some pretty complex stuff. But maybe it's just talking holistically.
Yeah,
so again,
that's the answer to the whole project.
Yeah. So yeah, like, it doesn't harm to have like layered things in, and I think an agentic browser, like, without needing to log in and stuff, just to break the flow, like I've got Comet and Atlas that I use, and I imagine it would just be like having a third chat window on the right here, which is looking at what I'm looking at on here, to help me maybe refine some projects. So maybe next week I'll play around with that a little bit more and see if it is actually helpful. In this case, then let's see what it does, right? So let's just use perplexity again. Generate me a short children's story about dragons. Don't really care what it is. That's fine. That's perfect. So let's see what it does. And then do we want it as let's try the comic book, see what that's like. Transform story. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen there because we haven't actually hooked anything up. So it says your comic book is being created, but
that's probably all it's going to do.
Yeah, like, because we haven't actually hooked up anything to it, I'd be surprised if it did anything. So but yeah, like we can see how it's thinking we should do this now. At this point, like if I'm happy with what it looks like, then great. We could say, and then in this case, I would say I added a story and selected comic book, clicked transform story, and nothing happened. And just see what it says. Like it will probably say like, oh yeah, no, because we need to add a database or something like that.
A lot of the time, what it also does is it will build the front end for you and fledge out, let's say, 50% of the functionality. But when it comes to other functions, sometimes you just have to kind of hard instruct it to add it.
It would be a waste of credits for it to do everything when you don't even know what it looks like yet. So I guess it starts at an earlier stage, gives you a prototype that you can go, yeah, we're kind of on the right track. And then you build out some of the core functionality.
I mean, in this case, we're still in the free credit modes at this point. So
yeah.
Now, once this is finished, it will have consumed our first paid credits. And it's quite intuitive in the sense that when it spots errors, it will add debug in so that it helps it find problems later on in the respective area. Okay, so I've added debugging logs to track what's happening. Try clicking transform story again. Right. Your comic book is being recorded.
Where is it?
Yeah, so do we need a database?
That's cheating.
Someone to
You're
see.
telling him the solution.
Well, that's the thing. It's a two-way thing, right? Like sometimes I've solved it by thinking like a problem. I mean, I feel like we're doing this the same way. Like maybe this is wrong, or maybe that's wrong, and it says okay, or you can say like try a different method, so it stops at its own loop. But in this case, yeah, I suspect because I like, and this becomes from this when you start using these more, you start anticipating what the problem might be, right? Because I have one big bugbear with these products, and I can't ever get them. So you're absolutely right. The button works, but there's no actual transformation happening yet. It just shows the toast. So that's what we expected would happen, right? So for that to actually work, we need to implement the core AI functionality, which is going to do the thing, right? It's going to convert text into the thing we want. And for that to happen, enable Lovable Cloud for backend functions, Lovable AI, edge functions, and a results component. Great. So this is the next part. This is us building depth. If we wanted just a static website, we've already hit that point, right? Where it just shows some stuff. You can change the text. You can, I don't even know if you can add URLs and stuff, probably. But we're going a layer beyond now. And for that, you need a back end. Lovable recently, and I'm talking, I think within the last month or so, has reduced further friction in its original product, which was still fantastic, in the sense that you had to previously before connect to Supabase, and you'd have to set up a Supabase account and authorize Lovable to connect that back end. And it was very easy. It made, like, for a non-techie, it kind of walked me through the process, of course, at the cost of a few credits, but you could basically get a back end free through Supabase, which would store all your data. If you wanted to integrate an AI model, you'd have to set that up somewhere. So I set up a Perplexity API using my Perplexity subscription. I said to Lovable, I want to hook up my Perplexity model to do all the kind of donkey work of the actual stuff that we're asking it to do. And it would then allow me to add the secure API details, the secret and the code. And at that point, when I asked the AI thing to do something, it would call the API from Perplexity. Perplexity would spin out the results and fire it back to Lovable to display in the UI. Now, Lovable have fully integrated with Supabase, so you never have to touch Supabase at all. It just does it all for you. It's fully automated. It uses its own AI. So there's no need to set up APIs and stuff like that unless you're connecting to a different provider. So for example, if we wanted to build a secure login and use our Google credentials, we'd need to set up Google credentials and share them, which again is very easy. But it's cut out all the friction. And of course, Lovable's business, they charge for cloud usage and AI usage. It's separate from your build credits, but we can come on to that later. We'll see, they give you, I think, like $5 free or something, which should be enough for this demonstration. But the point is that it can do all that very, very, very quickly and without any friction. So yes, please, like I should have just clicked that. So again, it doesn't automatically do that, but it says like, this is what we need. Do you want to do it? So fine. Now what we're going to have is we're going to have access to cloud data storage and we're going to have access to AI. So it's actually going to do what we want. It's going to start creating some edge functions, which will all be visible here if we want to look at that from a more technical point of view. Yeah, are there any other questions at this point while it's just doing this?
Yeah, what's an edge function?
So an edge function would be something like create the transformation edge function to break stories into scenes and generate image. So it will create, once it's finished, we will see here. Yeah, it's just doing that now. We'll see the different edge functions. So for example, in my other app where I've got I've built an AI agent, the edge functions are the practical things she can do. So the LLM is great for just producing and spitting out text. So the text will say, hey, Dan, I've done this for you. But unless there's an actual edge function behind that and the action that she's describing doing, so in this case, I've sent an email. If I haven't created an edge function to allow the system to create an email automatically, the LLM, the text will just show me that it's done it because that's what it predicts I want to see. The key is then getting that agent or that text to then trigger an action or some form of code, and in this case they call it edge functions. I'm not sure, Manuel, is edge function an industry term?
I don't know. Would that be an integration with a different system? So in the case, you will need an integration with Outlook to send an email, right? Or with your Exchange or with your server. Is that what you mean by an edge?
Yeah. So in this case, in that example, what I had to do was go into Google, into their console, set up an API, define what the permissions of that API allowed. So like, can send emails, yes or no? Can see calendar, yes or no? Can create calendar events, yes or no?
It's an integration or an API.
Yeah, and then you fire it back in, so
it's edge probably because it's to the outside of what Lovable is doing.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, right, we've got so now we should in theory have a UI with a back end that actually works hooked up to a cloud for storage and AI for its horsepower. You can see also Lovable has access to lots of different models. So I think by default it will choose Gemini 2.5. But when I started pushing beyond 2.5's capability, it said, look, we recommend you switch to GPT because it's more powerful for the kind of tasks you're asking me to do. Do you want us to go ahead and do that? I switched, and then all of a sudden the things that I wanted the system to do started performing a lot better because of the underlying AI model.
Wow, amazing.
So also, yeah, it's taken it as, because I said just go for it, it also got rid of its XXX because that was annoying it, and you can see it's done that kind of for me. So where are we at now? Like how many credits have we used? We've used 9 credits to get to a fully functional app, which is, I think, pretty damn good. Let's try that again then. So if I drop in the story, comic book transform story, in theory, it's actually doing something now. So it's 15 to 30 seconds, depending on the story length. So these are little like UI UX points of view. I will then, if I was building this for myself, I would say, how do I know that it's working? Show me a percentage generation, like little things like that. And instead of it just being grayed out, okay, cool. All right.
Hey.
So now we've got it, right? We've got a comic book, your transform story. That's pretty cool, right? It's broken it down into scenes. And the natural evolution of that, I would be like, great. I want to be able to export that as a PDF because that will be the next thing, right? Like I want to be able to do something with that or share it to socials or whatever it may be.
Or tie it into a printing book platform that lets you actually have something to give physically.
Yep. So if that platform had an API suite that consume like whatever format, let's say that platform had a format that they wanted to receive their things in, we could configure that to spit, we could configure this thing now to spit out the PDF in that format, and it would just, if we created the API, we could automate that flow into that system.
It would be
So,
great to create also a digital archive of it, so I can watch these stories on my iPad or on my phone. You know, instead of, yeah, every format is great. We are just demoing here. To me, it's just great that it just made it.
yeah. So, and again, because we haven't told it to like store a history, it hasn't intuitively done that. So we've probably lost that one, right? So what I'll do again is I'll say, okay, yeah, and even me just doing that, that's fine. You could just kind of say, I talk to it too much like a human, but I just lost the story I wanted to keep. Let's build a save, an automatic. I don't want to manually do it. An automatic save area for generated. I don't know what you call them, stories. So now it's starting to anticipate. Do you want us to store user profile data? And normally yes, but it does slow down testing. So I tend to build the kind of the login layer as a final feature. Otherwise, every time it reloads, you might find yourself having to type in your username and password, and it just slows things down. So we'll build a login feature later once the app is ready. That's fine. One point to note here, though, when I first started using this, I assumed that it would solve one of the problems with AI that I don't have quite often, in that it loses its context and its history. And because the chat is stored, I assumed that wouldn't be an issue here. And I realized that that is still an issue here, in the sense that I was repeating myself over and over again. So on a more complex project I was working on, there were like 3 core system rules. Like remember I told you about the neural network I was building of like data points. It was like nodes of information connected with lines, and those nodes were spheres. And every time you added a new node, it should rearrange the kind of atom of nodes, as I called it, in the most efficient way based on the kind of connections I wanted. So if I wanted to connect them by time, it would organize them into a kind of timeline. But there was a problem where those spheres kept overlapping. And so I built a core system rule to say, whenever I add a new node, they should never overlap with an existing node, so that each node had its own unique space in the bigger atom. Like for me, that was a basic logic. It was like simple rule, like how big is the atom, the node, make sure they don't overlap. And it kept getting it wrong over and over again. And I had to keep explaining this core rule. And I realized it's because it's not saving. There's no kind of like nothing's protected. Everything is fair game for change at every prompt. And I don't know what like local storage it's got here, but it's definitely not going back and looking at that whole history. And especially as that history gets bigger and bigger and bigger, sometimes you have to, or quite often you have to repeat yourself quite often. Like that's why, I don't know if any of you saw my post on LinkedIn about this, like being able to protect core features and lock those in and make sure that the code cannot be changed without explicit permission, I think would be a really neat feature on this. So you can kind of protect the core functionality.
Can you roll back to previous versions? Can you save this and don't touch it, so that there's always a backup to what your next version is?
Great point. View history here. Okay, so here's all our, I mean, everything's unpublished, but if let's say we broke something in that version, like I'm not going to roll back because I want to see if it worked, but let's say we broke something and we wanted to go back to this version here, you restore this version. Very easy. Yeah, like it's super intuitive for that. Let's go. Yes, it's just that history button there, and that's all our kind of core versions. Every prompt that has resulted in a change creates a new version here. So yeah, let's put that in again, because we we need to generate the story. And in theory, what we should see now is the 2 changes we've made. We've made the ability to save this story if we like it. In fact, it should auto save based on my prompt, and the ability to export to PDF. And then Alex, I don't know if you've sent through a PDF file for me to upload of a different story yet, but the next thing we'll build is the ability to upload a PDF that means we don't have to type or. Okay, so here we go. So we've got export as PDF. Let's see what that looks like. So yeah, we've got a nice PDF, pretty basic, right? But yeah, we can iterate on that, right? It's a starting point. The fact is that it generates a PDF and it exports it, and we can save it and do what we want with it. Where does it store the history though? Ooh, I think maybe that's why it was asking about users, because obviously the history would be specific to a user.
There should be a page with saved stories probably at the bottom.
But I think its point is that it doesn't know like which user to store it to. So like if Dan Wood logs in, I want to see my stories that I've saved, and I think that's probably why it doesn't.
I saw the thinking process, and it was saying that it had created a page for saved stories. Is it not accessible anywhere?
Okay, let's ask it then.
Yeah, Dan, there should be in your inbox a PDF.
It's probably, yeah. So how can I save the story? I think it's going to ask me to. I think it's going to ask me to generate top right corner.
Yeah, it's not that.
Okay. I can't see. But this is a good example, because sometimes it says stuff that like it's obviously not looking. It's obviously not looking at what we're seeing, right? But it's you can talk to it as well if you want, but I can't see. Like sometimes I find, like in this case, something like if I was doing this for myself, I'd take a screenshot and I'd upload that in and say like just to reinforce that I can't see it. But you don't always have to do that. I can't see any saved stories button. And I just think sometimes layering that with a screenshot reinforces the fact that I can't say it, because there have been occasions where it says like, no, you can see it, it's there. And I'm like, well, I can't. I'm a human and I can't see it. And the way I prove that to the system, desktop, looking at see again, here it's saying there should be a button labeled Save Stories.
Well, viewing the preview. Yeah.
Okay, maybe in preview, but yeah, maybe it's a scaling issue then. So then, okay, fine. Let's try it, see if it's right.
No.
This is in preview mode.
There's another top right.
No. So yeah, this is a. Oh, there we go. So now it's appeared. Okay, save stories. Okay.
No saved stories.
So then, okay, so we've got save stories.
Generate it again.
You need to do it again, I guess. Maybe with another. Okay.
But it's also in the wrong place, isn't it? You want to be able to.
Yeah.
Well, it's automatically saving stories, I guess. So yeah.
But then it didn't automatically save the. Yeah. So we should yeah. So this is a good example where we'd work through this feature and say like it should have automatically saved, but there's nothing in the save stories. Why? Let's generate in this time. Let's do a realistic movie. I think it's gonna. I know, but it's still there. So it's retained it. Anyway, but these are little things you'd improve on, right? Let's do transform story into a realistic movie. See what happens. Yeah, and while that's happening, I'll just get the thing from Alex. And I wanted that as, oh, I've got it in PDF. Yeah, nice. Thanks. Okay.
Now go to saved stories. Nah.
Unless it's, yeah, let's try Alex. No, let's add a PDF upload
function
feature to the as an additional way to add text. Generate stories from the text contained. while
this
that's
is a
happening.
preview. Is it supposed to have a database in the backend? Because
so now we do. So if you remember before when I clicked the cloud, it didn't show me it. So now when you click cloud, it shows us what we've got in the back. So in this case, we've got a database
that is empty.
But so we probably haven't because maybe this is an issue. Then we're trying to save stuff and it hasn't actually created a database for that. So maybe that we could give that prompt, say there's no database. How can it save stuff? If we did have users, it would show our users. Storage, we haven't got anything stored. Edge functions. So yes, the first edge function it's created is something called transform story, and it can see how many times that's been used. And we've done three? Yeah, we've done 3 or 4 stories. How many times it worked? How many times it failed? AI. We can see that we're using AI 2.5 flash image. We can change that if we want. It's using flash and flash image. We can change that if we want. We can just ask that. If we did have APIs, this is where we would, like it created its own API for probably the AI integration. We can access the logs here. So this cloud feature is really, really useful just to kind of see that back end in a few clicks. Right, so in this case, all right, fine. So I'll just refresh it to make sure we're on the same version.
It also said you were approaching your AI limit.
Yeah, I've probably got, I don't know how many credits I've got left on like actual AI. Maybe it's pulling it. It should be pulling it because Alex has set up an account, a dedicated account for these calls, but it may be using my personal AI credits for that, which is fine. So in this case, let's do. Okay, failed to extract text from PDF. So failed to extract text from PDF. Maybe again, because it's got nowhere to store that. Again, I assume it's like we've uploaded something and it's hasn't really uploaded it. I've updated the PDF workers even. Okay. How many credits are we on now? What are we on? So we're still only on, we're still in 87, 88 left.
Does it not upload? Can you scroll down? Because I think you told him to generate this story automatically.
Yeah, what? So you just put in the PDF and then it
Yeah,
so it doesn't need to extract the text and show it there. It just transforms from the document. Maybe that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the prompt, the way it interpreted the prompt, it says I'm going to.
Okay.
But
again, like the UI should show me very clearly whether or not that's been successfully uploaded or not. So it's something that we can definitely improve on.
Maybe this is too complex a task for task.
No, I've done this. I think it's because we don't. I think it's because we've kind of potentially skipped over the back end a little bit. Like, because it would need to store the PDF.
Does it not guide you to the building the PDF? So thinking you are guiding us through this, but if I had started on Lovable on my own, I would have had no idea that I had to go through the process of building the front end first and then the back end and all of those things. Does it not guide you through that process?
I've never really had any guidance on that. Like when I spoke to a data person who will build the database first, and most of the devs I work with actually have said build the database and the infrastructure first, and the UI is the kind of last piece. I think like Lovable flips that, right? It kind of like you start seeing something that you expect to work more, and there's nothing behind that. Maybe you could start a prompt to say like I want to build the core infrastructure properly. I've done it before where I've built like can everyone see the whiteboard I'm on now?
No, 1 second.
Is it sharing the whiteboard or is it?
No, you're showing your screen. You're showing Lovable.
Lovable still, okay.
Alex provided a link to it before.
Yeah.
In the chat. So I've got it up in a separate window.
Can you see that now, or is it still showing Lovable?
Still showing Lovable.
Okay, very weird.
But the approach of Lovable is right. So designing the front end first will give you all the information that you need probably about the database. If you define all your front end, all the functionality that you want, and then ask it to define the database, you should have the right database.
Yeah. Can you see that now? It should,
Yes.
it should work. Okay, right. Cool. So well, I've done stuff before where I've like built a bit of a wireframe. So like, I don't know, like in an attempt to try and control the structure too, and I don't know, like see what's going on a little bit. I don't know, like you know what the kind of users or whatever. Just build a bit more of a flow and literally just drop like a screenshot of this sort of stuff into Lovable to say like build me a system that functions like this. I don't know whether that helps or not. Like maybe it's intuitive enough that how do I know that what I've designed here is better than what it would do by itself? I guess is the kind of way to look at that. I don't know. But yeah, I would like, from a personal point of view, I would like to just know a little bit more about this, like how it's designed this, different pages, its integrations, different components, so that I could understand a little bit more. When I look at this, I could be like, oh, I can see how it's done that. Oh, I can see how the database is kind of connected. I can see where it pulls various bits of information from and maybe why certain things aren't working. But I guess that's all part of the journey. So in this case, I'll try to upload Alex's document again. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more. I don't want to get down this rabbit hole, but this is an example of one of those holes you could just drill into to try and solve it, which we've got like 45 minutes left on the call, and this is what it was for, right? But if there's other features we want to move on. So again here, I don't know what, you're still trying to use the old CDN. What is the CDN? I don't know.
Content
distribution network.
Something like that. Is that, yeah, it's or you have all your files.
Okay.
It's like a cache, isn't it? A bit like a global cache.
Refactor the PDF upload to load the library dynamically, and here it's anticipating some actions. So like, what would I want to do next? Add text doc file support as a logical evolution of that, or remove the feature entirely. But I want to keep working through this.
Failed to start.
Do we have enough back-end functionality in place to store uploaded documents in order to extract text? Yeah, so let's get this feature working, and then maybe everyone can just create their own prompt and send it on the chat, and we'll just fire it in and see what it does. Everyone can have a go at adding a feature. And just out of interest, the link I sent through before on the preview of this, can you all open that and use it as well. Like, I wonder what happens when multiple people try and use that app, because we haven't built user profiles yet. So it's not like I'm uploading Dan Wood stories. I suspect at this point it would fall over if we tried to do multiple.
We need to log in. Access denied. It says if your friend send you a preview link as the
Okay. So
public
okay.
credit.
So what I'm going to do now then, in that case, just to get you guys hands on.
Or you can add us as collaborators, I think.
Yeah, but we would need for us to be collaborators on this version, we would need to be on like a paid version of added all onto the team.
Yeah.
The way you can get onto this now is that, in fact, let's do this example. So I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Like we could spend all day fixing it. What we should probably do now, let's assume we got it to a point where we were happy, and even if we just like the comic book version, this would be a good time if we did want to potentially push it out there. We could do update. Let's do a quick security scan. And see what issues it finds. Like I don't suspect it's going to have any core issues, because there's not really any sensitive information in there, but maybe it will find a few things. And then what we'll do is we'll publish the app, and then I'll share that link, and then you should all be able to see it, because that's then a live website. The reason you can't see it now is because it's obviously going through my user credentials to get in there. So okay. It's all clear, no issues spotted, but let's just wait till it finishes.
So it's saying that you have issues.
No, it's come up here with an initial all clear, no issues, but I'm just waiting. It's just managed security finding here.
Yeah, but it says, based on my comprehensive security review, I identified several security issues.
Interesting. There's a contradiction there. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So it's finished up now. Okay, maybe that was just like a pre.
Yeah, so it looks like it was a pre-message.
Yeah. It's okay. So we've got two critical. Yeah, and it tells you why it's an issue and kind of puts it into layman's speak. And
That's fine. Yeah.
okay. So you could, once it's finished, yeah. Okay. Yeah, important disclaimer, of course. You could try to fix all for free, and that would be fine, and it would take up more time. But in this case, that's fine. Like I don't have to do that. There's no real risk to it anyway. I'm going to publish the app, so I can publish anyway.
Yeah, there was no real issue.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, we just shipped. Now obviously the risk is on us. I'll drop the URL into the chat here, and then that's our live app.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
Let's try.
Is there a way to change one day the URL removing Lovable as part of the script, or
Yep.
Lovable has to remain?
No, so you can change it here. So if we wanted to edit the Lovable one, you could do, I don't know, like we can make it up. We could do Magic Stories. Maybe that's being used. Update. Yeah, so we've updated the URL, and that's obviously if Magic Stories had been used by someone else, that would be taken. Or if we wanted to add a custom domain, you can purchase a new domain directly through here, or you can add an existing domain that you already know.
So
Again,
the standard is lovable.app, and otherwise you can change it potentially.
yeah, you can change the front now. So I've just updated the app. I don't know if I need to republish that or if it happens automatically. I think it might be automatic.
Okay.
But yeah, in theory, if you try that old URL now, it shouldn't work, and we've updated it to Magic Stories.
So quite interestingly, I've just tested it and asked it to generate an animated cartoon instead, and it's come back with exactly the same format as the comic book. So I
Right,
don't think
okay.
it's necessarily able to differentiate between the four formats that we've asked for.
Yeah, and I think this comes to a point where you need to test each feature, right? You need to play around with it and get hands-on. I mean, like, this is a perfect example of us now multitasking. We've got, 6, 7 people on here able to test it in production, come back with feedback. And if we had something like a centralized whiteboard, using something like a Zoom whiteboard or even just the chat in here, it's not too user-friendly once it gets busier. We could then rapidly together test all the functionality of this. We could have someone dedicated on trying to break it. We could have someone dedicated on working out what's good and what we think we might want to market it against. We could have so many brains feeding into this, consolidating all that feedback, upvoting the things we want to fix next, have a central person controlling the prompts or multiple people accessing the project real time. And you can very quickly see how you could iterate a product very quickly. Now, of course, yeah, it has flaws, right? It has flaws, but I wonder what it would cost and how long it would take to get to this point using traditional development methods. I feel like it's an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
And we've jumped straight in at building something that uses some sort of AI layer. But if you were to build something, I don't know, maybe let's take a step back. Let's add a new feature, which it doesn't involve a kind of AI layer and exports.
So the logical step here would be to create users and logins and
Yeah,
be
you
able to
create
store
users,
things, for
login.
example. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd work through each of these and kind of say, like, why is it the same as that? I want the arc. You could even drop in like examples, like when, again, this is why with the upload feature here. So I've got a zoom edit button there. That's annoying. When I go add here, it's covered by a zoom icon I've got. You can add knowledge. You can add, you can connect to GitHub here. You can take a screenshot directly from here. You can attach files. You can attach video recordings of things that are non-screenshotable. I had this issue where I couldn't get it to show real-time changes. And I had this thing where when I clicked the button, I wanted icons to pop up real time. And if there were other users using it, I wanted their icons to display activity to show that, to kind of validate to anyone looking at their screen that there were other people engaging with the product, a bit like a real-time like system. And I couldn't simulate that in a screenshot not working. So I needed to do a screen recording to say that when I click this, it does the buttons. But when I click with another user, nothing happens. So again, upload anything you want. That's a very useful feature. I love it. I spend a lot of time on it, and I feel like it keeps my brain sharp, and I'm constantly like the struggles are what keep me learning. And it's forcing me to do more things like delve into the code, to start considering what a back end would look like and all these things here. So yeah, I found it a really cool tool.
Okay. Interesting.
Can I ask a question just about the practicalities? I mean, I imagine a lot of people, especially kids in their bedrooms and things, the idea, the notion that you could create a kind of passive income platform app that earns you money because you've built this in Lovable or something. The actual, from this kind of, we've got a basic prototype with some functionality in, to actually getting it into something that can, be online and accessible by the world and take money.
I was
be
about
tied
to
in.
ask the same. Amazing.
Yeah. So I imagine there's quite a big jump from this to having something that's actually functional in the world, that someone can actually earn a living from, or just a bit of pocket money to pay for their Lovable account, whatever.
Yeah.
And is it realistic that, I imagine from what I can see, Lovable's quite expensive to host and manage and things on. Would you take it off here once you've got the base code and host it somewhere else privately? Or there's a lot that I don't quite get.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely yes. So I did a post on my LinkedIn account, basically highlighting some of my experience and frustrations of working with vibe coding and Lovable and specifically, and asking that exact question, like, has anybody actually shipped, a production level product? There were a few people that came back to me and said, yes, we did, but we've got a team of 5 developers with 10 years plus experience each. We have had to migrate it to Git, like we spoke about earlier, take the code off here and control that ourselves. Some people have said, Lovable it can get you to that point, but building and maintaining a product live in this environment, I haven't come across anyone that said, oh yeah, we've launched something and we're charging through it and we've entirely kept it in Lovable, and any user feedback from the clients are being immediately changed using this code. Like, it seems to be that this gets them to a starting point. You can hook up, you can integrate this with, if there were, open banking APIs and connecting it to payment providers, I'm sure you could do all that. Whether or not you'd be content releasing something that, with the security required around those sort of actions, I don't know. I guess anyway, the point here is that a kid or anybody could think that they've built something that's reliable, hook up an API and not realize that they're exposing all that traffic that comes through their site, right?
I mean, I could probably jump in here, Dan, as well. So have any of you guys heard of Cal AI?
Which one, sorry?
Cal AI. So it was basically made by, I think it was 16-year-old, completely vibe coded, which is essentially an app on your phone that you can take a photo of a plate of food, a banana, any snack, anything that's edible, anything that's got a barcode. Yes. And that's making, I think, upwards of 10, 20 mil annual recurring revenue. And again, it was completely vibe coded. So the process is you go into a tool like Lovable, Base44, or Replit, and you get the proof of concept going, get the database structure going. So it does about 80% of the heavy lifting. Once you've got that, you push that code to GitHub and you go into a editor. So that would be Cursor or VS Code, whatever your kind of manual choice is. The main problem that they then face is how you convert the proof of concept to an actual deployable app, because you've got, this is, I think, I don't know too much about coding, but this is like JavaScript, Tailwind, React, CSS based, in which case you need to convert it, if you're on Apple, to Xcode, which is a completely different language. So there's a lot of finickiness to it because this is deployable via web. But a lot of the time, if you're deploying via Android or Apple, it's completely different. But again, then there's hurdles like payment processors and how you integrate that and how you API over with that. And then you've got real data compliance. So I mean, it's very, very complex, but this does so much of it for you. And again, using Cursor or Claude Code does the rest, to be honest with you.
But I can't see how, like, the rapid iteration of these tools, Lovable's end game must be, or other platforms. I'm using Lovable just because they must want to avoid that friction of people taking the code off their system, because what they want you to do is launch live products through this, utilize their cloud charging mechanisms, utilize their AI models, because they're obviously taking a turn on every single action. The reason it's not working anymore, by the way, it said my Lovable AI credits have been depleted on terms of this action. It's probably using quite a lot to generate that, but that's fine. We got it working once or twice. And will the products evolve to the point when you don't need to do any of those steps, Alex, that you mentioned? Like, Lovable integrates a trusted payments provider. That means you don't have to touch any of that. Like, again, a bit like here, we never needed to set up any of the APIs for the cloud or the AI behind it. Payments would be an obvious thing to have a partnership with here. And I'm sure there's plenty of companies looking to, or desperate to, partner with Lovable to make those integrations as seamless as possible. I just can't see that the evolution of this tool isn't going in that direction, and that it's just a matter of time before it is the norm.
I think it will take some time, and I think it's unclear who will win. I mean, for a very simple app as the one that Alex was mentioning, you might be able to do it. The moment you get out more complex, what people are finding is that software development is quite complex because you have many pieces working together. And the same way that you were saying, it doesn't remember the context. Remembering the context for a big program, for a big database, or a big application app is very difficult for AI. So you can use Codex and Claude and all of this. I haven't done it, but I'm reading a lot about it to tell them to improve things and to correct things, but telling them to manage a whole application is too difficult. Yeah. So they're not capable of doing that yet. So I think Alex is right. You can take this to an MVP or a prototype stage, and then take it to something else, Claude, potentially, and say, okay, now move this to so I can deploy it, or make it Lovable will do the integration with payments probably, but you will want to make sure all those tweaks you probably want to manage in a different tool. And potentially they will all integrate together, because there's no reason why Lovable couldn't be calling Codex at some point, for example, or Claude.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing? Like I of course observed all this with the eyes of that I have, which are not the eyes of a programmer. I'm a computer user. You know me a bit, Dan. I mean, I love exploring technologies, but I do it with a completely consumer approach, right? So I started with enthusiastic approach, like I have something that build things for me. Wow. And we had an idea, we throw this idea, and the early result was good enough to hook me into the idea. Wow, it's getting there. And actually, no, or partially. Like I feel like the simplicity that has been sold at the beginning crashed somehow, or I don't want to look negative, just to be clear. I'm still enthusiastic, but it's way more complicated than what I saw. Like every time I read or I see YouTubers or every type of advertising promising miraculous app that build everything at one, in one click, even with person that have no abilities at all. Not at all. I mean, I listened to Alex describing the process of the 16-year-old kid that is making million with an idea. It still requires a lot of steps and a lot of understanding of how those platforms. I don't want to look a boomer here, but I don't even know what GitHub is or how it works, and I don't want to feel guilty about it. Now, what does this mean to me is that there is still a great. Actually, this can be transformed in an opportunity because, as you said, okay, somebody has an idea. This time was me to generate a book. Sometimes else would be you, Manuel, whoever. But then we need to build a team. You need a team that help you to check, to do the proof that everything is working. Then you maybe need somebody else that help you setting up even a way to transform this game, this hobby, into a way to generate a flow of money. So people like you guys that have more experience than me in that could potentially help or imagine or define the process that is needed. Because what I get from this call with you guys is that the magic is still there. I mean, we had an idea and we saw that embryonically it can become something interesting, right? But the framework and the technique that is still required is beyond the average consumer capabilities. This doesn't mean that that cannot work and it can become even successful, right? So I feel like we are a little bit in between.
Yeah, I agree with Stefano in the sense that I think that the way it's pitched and the way you see it on YouTube and all of these things is that you can make $10,000 a month just with Lovable. And the reality is you need a hell of a lot more knowledge, not just about user interface, usability, the fact that databases exists, that you're probably going to have to publish to GitHub. You're probably going to need a coder to help you, all of this sort of stuff. So they're great, they're sort of clickbait titles, but that doesn't undermine the fact that what these tools are able to do is mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
At the same time, and it's like so. I think that this sort of represents an opportunity. You know, if you get in early and you can use these tools now, you've got a window of opportunity to actually build something that could make some money if you're willing to put the time and the effort into it before it does get that consumer level when anyone can just say, just make me an app to count calories, and it spits it out and it works. And you know, you've probably paid $100, but it works, and then you can start making some money. But then there's a million of them out there and no one's interested.
Yeah,
It just sort of feels a bit like that. We're before the point where everything is so consumable and easy to access. There is a learning curve, and it's quite a steep learning curve, even with all this brilliant sort of agentic kind of stuff going on. But it sounds like, Dan, that's the journey that you're absolutely in love with. You're learning. It's like, I think before, if you wanted to learn piano, you had to go to a piano teacher and you had to learn how to read music. And now you can get an app that will teach you how to listen to a track, and it will show you which keys to play. It's a bit like that with coding. Suddenly someone who's not a coder can start building something that was before, well, you have to learn React and you have to learn JS and you have to learn all of this before you can even get going. So it's breaking down those barriers, but the barriers are really big.
Yeah. But I think, like, I mean, let's take a step back though, because not all things need to be released as a production level money making tool. Like,
Sure.
That's absolutely the goal, right? Like that would be awesome if we could build a tool that started generating money and was fantastic. Great. But like, in the world I use it in, like, to help bring out it, like, imagine someone's got an idea for an app and they go and spend, you could easily go and spend 100 grand on it working with the developer, and it would take a long time. And you know, the fact that you can get to that, but I genuinely have no idea how much it would cost to get to a point like what we've built in a few clicks. And how many prompts? Yeah, we're still on like 20 prompts. We've got an app that's now live that has AI connection. It's got a back end in 20 prompts. I mean, that's ridiculous. And what we can do with that now is crazy. If we want to add a menu, like even something as simple as, like, you launch something and then you're a founder and you say, oh, but wouldn't it be really good? Like, I always think back to the Social Network film, which is Jesse Eisenberg, who plays Mark Zuckerberg, and it's how Facebook came about. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's one moment in that when he's sat in a bar, right, and someone says, do you know if this girl is single? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if she's single. It's not online. And then he has the idea of, like, that relationship status that was such a key feature of Facebook when it first launched. And he's like, you could see his brain just pop, and he runs back to his room and he codes that feature in, add relationship status to my Facebook page, and people will love that. And the fact that, like, I, as a non-coder, can have an idea about an app that I'm working on while I'm on a walk in the forest, run back home and just put it into here and say, hey, like I'll share my screen again now. Like, you know, it's not as powerful a moment as the relationship status in our app, but
just out of interest, just with that story alone, what about IP and stuff? Does Lovable own your code? Do you own your code? Where does that live in this space? Because they're hosting it. They've used their AI tools to help you create it. Do they have any ownership to this?
That's a really good question, and I honestly don't know the answer.
I would bet that the terms and conditions said that it's all yours. Probably the discussion would probably be that they are probably allowed to train the models on what you do, but at least on your, or at least on the free tiers.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is, it's not only about coding, because what I wanted to say, well, before this stopped working, instead of adding a story to the prototype, I said, give me a commit for Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to give them the story. The thing I wanted got the story for itself and then develop the game. But if you think about it, the way I'm using AI is as a way of having experts to bounce ideas with all the time. So I want to do something, I want to write something, and I say, okay, how would you go about it? And it's not the AI. What the AI is doing is looking at a lot of experts that have published their thoughts online on books and things like that, and telling me what the state of the art is or what the consensus is about something. And here is the same. It hasn't just given us whatever backend, it's given us a design, it's given us images, it's generated so many things. If you think that if you have a good application for a business model or for an app or for whatever type of business, you can use this to create a prototype and iterate and show it to others and say,
that's exactly
you think that, and at some point, then you say, okay, how do we actually make this work? And you can have the first 3 transactions through this. And then, okay, I'm going to have to get serious and get someone. The problem is with sustainability. You can probably get to put this publish and make money, but then it's being sustainable. How I'm going to create the new versions of this and how I'm going to keep adding features. And that's, I think, where AI, because of how difficult it is for them at this point to manage context and maintain context, is going to be much more difficult.
Yeah. One case that I like the idea of is let's say you're in a business and you want to launch a product, and there's the room's divided. You've done your sprints and your analysis, or whatever it may be, and you've got 2 ideas that are both fantastic, and you've whittled them down from many, and you need to decide which one to build. Now, what these tools give you is the ability to go away and build both and split test those with your intended market users or whoever you're going to put that prototype in front of, in a way that wasn't possible before. You can just say, fine, if team A feels very passionate about this idea and team B feels very passionate about this one, go away. The company's going to give you 100 credits each, build both. We'll design the testing plan with potential clients or existing clients or whoever that may be, targeted users, and whichever one gets the best results we'll go with, and that's the one we'll put into the developers' hands to actually build. I think that's the kind of benefit of these, purely from a prototyping point of view right now. But I'm a believer that Lovable will do everything in its power to move out of just becoming a prototyping tool, and I think we're starting to see that with the integrations and connections. It's making but I do also agree that the problem with this is that we get a lot of crap products in the world, right? Like everyone's building now, and therefore you become overwhelmed with opportunities, or even just people stop buying other things. So you're I can just build it myself. I'm sure there's AI agents out there that do a much better job than what I did. But me as a creative builder, I want to learn something that's a tool that adds value to my life. And so I decided not to take the lazy option and just go and find something that works, build it for myself. And then that way I'll learn and get something that's valuable. I don't know, sorry.
They just give a bit of feedback. I used to work for Applied Materials, and one of their mottos is time is our only advantage. Because sooner or later, someone else is going to do what you plan to do. And this really does give you an advantage if you can use it to get your idea out there before half a dozen other people that are also working on the same idea, but they may be using slower methods. There's still going to be a big problem, though, that there's going to be a deluge of apps, and how do you get attention? And that's a sort of universal problem.
But that's already there. If you go to Apple Store or the Google one, you find thousands of apps for whatever you want to do. Yeah, it's always like that. That some of them are the ones that you use because they are better.
Yeah. The other thing is just giving feedback on the experience. I've got the same view that others have expressed, that it gets you to a certain point very quickly, but it's still quite a lot of other things you need to do to make it a practical money-making proposition.
That being said,
get better.
Yeah, exactly that point, Doug. Because if you think about just 2 years ago when ChatGPT 1.0 and 2.0 could barely string a proper sentence together or add numbers, and now we're here. Same with Lovable. Actually, when it first launched, it was actually really, really bad, but
Yeah.
it's only getting easier, and the threshold is only getting lower. So I think the best way to position yourself is wherever in the slipstream is. Like, these tools are going to become so much easier. So if you just know how to use it and stay, ambitious and creative with your ideas, then speed's only going to increase at
So
this
can
point.
everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
It's sharing. So just, as you've been talking, I've just like added a feature where I wanted to add an extra form. If I want to write my own story, let's imagine we're using this to help kids do it. So add something that I don't know how long it would take to code, add emojis and add emojis to each box. Just, this is the kind of it, like, if we're not thinking about the end state of releasing and monetization, like in terms of like just rapid changes within the prototype, these are the sort of things, like, it doesn't always have to be like complex AI integrations and stuff, like simply just building in something that you like using. Little pain points, like I find like forms very mundane and annoying. Like, how could you build a better form? How could you make it, I don't know, let's say I want to add a profile picture. Like, these are basic examples, and coming right back to it took us a few prompts to get to this point. And how do you build something that's, a great tool to use, irrespective of whether it's live or not? You now have the ultimate power to do that. Like, you can make any changes you want within the product. I don't know, you could say, let's add 3D avatars and just see what it does. Just any idea you want, it will just do it. That's the point of the session. Like, yes, the flaws in terms of getting it live and out there are known, and that's a really hot topic, and it's quite emotive. Like, it's a bit Marmite. Some people are like, vibe coding is terrible, it's never going to go anywhere, and some people are like, it's the future and it's where it's going to go. And I think, like in most things in life, it's going to be somewhere in a hybrid. I think you're going to Stefano's point, frictions will be reduced. That mean you need to be less technical to use it, but the fallacy of being able to just go on and create something without any form of control or oversight, I'm not sure it will ever get to that point. You do need a certain degree of technical competency, but maybe that's just a symptom of the technical competency needed to keep up with the world of AI as it is anyway. I don't know. This is a little bit more than that, but yeah, hopefully a useful session anyway to highlight the power of what you do within the platform.
Sorry, just to make a pointer that you are trusting Lovable with the security of this thing, and they have clearly built an agent in the background that does all the security testing and all the security improvements. They could as well, they will build infrastructure agent, they will build a database agent, and in the end, all of those things will be automated, and you'll be able to focus on the user functionality and what you want. And I think, yes, they will manage to build everything from scratch. But don't forget, though, that there's millions and probably billions of codes out there, things that we're already using. So those will not be able to be maintained by the current set of tools.
So I have a number of clients who use AI very much in a coding world. They spend hundreds of thousands a month just on their AI bills, just because they're just on this massive development kind of thing. So I'm intrigued, Alex, from your perspective as an actual coder who does this day in, day out, how is AI shaping your life? Are you using it as a peer kind of person, sort of someone who's just allowing you to be more efficient in your coding, or are you finding Lovable useful to prototype? I'm just interested from your perspective how you're seeing it all happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I'm definitely getting more shaped by my environment than choosing to. But yeah, just to preface, I'm not actually a very competent coder. I did it until A levels, and I'm kind of in the stream of things. But I would not say I understand every single thing from first principles. That being said, as a kind of operator model, it's hugely been helpful. We use it all the time, whether it's even apps. So what you can do is on Lovable, you can make an app for a personal use case. One that I'm working on right now is a diary that humans aren't always that good at self-regulating emotions. So what you can do is it could like data analyze that and say, on the days that you mentioned this thing, your sentiments seem to be slightly worse. And you can be like, oh yes, actually, on the days that I didn't exercise or whatever it may be, and then you can just add that widget to the home screen without even deploying the app. So it's still hosted via Lovable Web, but you're using it as an app personally. And I mean, in other aspects, there's just all sorts of different AI models and applications. So I forgot the API, but there's something that essentially makes you connect to anything you want, whether it be Google Maps to postal codes to image gen via VO3. We're experimenting with that right now, actually, for just all sorts of ideas. It's good for hooks and LinkedIn and stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, it's more so just staying in the loop of what the tools are rather than being too good at using them, because I feel like the medium is the greatest power that you have right now. It's just trying to stay on top of all of it.
It's one of the things that this client has checked in with is that now that they've adapted kind of peer programming with AI, the senior developers have become so efficient that they're having to do work shorter hours because they are literally getting burnout. It's like this, that what they were coding in 5 days a week normally on their own, now they're doing in half the time. But the amount of attention it needs to be working with their chat agent means that the end of day 2 or 3, they're absolutely wiped. And it's just an interesting thing. It's meant to make us more efficient, which it does, but actually it's making us So I'm really intrigued by. Have you had that experience where you're just coding way more, you're building more than you would have done before, but now you're like, fuck. Really?
Yeah, and then you end up multi-threading where you have 4 different tabs open on different engines and AIs, and you're like, well, this one's loading, you're researching one thing, then you're going back to it. So it might also be context switching, because that is very intensive.
Yes.
But to your point, Rob, I completely agree. So Alex and I talk about this kind of like, well, Alex and I, people are talking about AI should, in theory, take off the workload from humans, and this fallacy of us having kind of early retirements and more time for leisure is a complete fallacy, because humans just end up running faster. Alex gives an example of putting on the running shoes and running faster. AI gives us better running shoes, and yeah, like I spend a lot more time doing stuff now, and also like one of the things from an innovation point of view is telling people to avoid getting caught down the build trap, because if you're building the wrong thing, it's just a wasted time and effort. It's why you want to properly define the problem you're trying to solve, understand the thing you need to build, and then build something that's really efficient and lean. The problem with these tools, it allows you to do that, but it allows you to do that 10 times. So you might end up doing everything at like maybe 20-30% efficiency, and then you've got 10 products that are completely half-baked. And what does that solve? So it's still about being a bit precise about how you use your time, and not getting caught down the build trap, which makes it far too easy to do. But as long as it's fun and learning, like for me, I've got so many projects that are just sat there as an idea that popped into my head. It took 20-30 credits to do it, maybe took me a day. I learned something from it, and it's just sat there as an idea, half baked in my Lovable kind of project list now. And that's okay, because that's kind of a hobby for me as well. But if you're a company doing that, then maybe you don't want a list of half baked products.
It's interesting because, for example, back to what we've done today, and it reconnects a lot on the way also I'm learning how to use LMMs and so on. I struggle to see a real save of time now. Of course there is, don't get me wrong, but you also spend a lot of time in how you learn to use the tools. And it's interesting the dynamic we follow today, because we started with a very simple idea. But before getting the simple initial idea realized, we started adding features. Oh, maybe we can do that. Oh, maybe we can ask also this, because our brain were overexcited and we all saw venues of opportunity. But that at the end, at least the way I saw, ended up complicating, consuming all your credits. And we ended up not having the very first prototype fully functioning the way we wanted. So guys, I'm fully improvising here, but just the feedback I would give myself if I would work with Lovable is to stay, maybe resist to the temptation to, overcomplicate it immediately. Try to get a a very basic prototype at the end, and only after you see how it works, you can try to add the features that you consider very relevant. Maybe you can share with others. You can see how they use it, a bit design thinking approach, like prototype and iterating it and see how it works. This could be maybe a way, not necessarily to save credits. I don't think the objective could be to save credit necessarily, at least in this stage, but really just to complicate it in a way that is meaningful, and add in the features that we could consider really interesting for the usage.
That's a great point, Stefano, because that comes back to my point about knowing what you're trying to build, knowing your problem you're trying to solve, and what those minimum viable features of that product will look like. And so, for me, the first session was great. Probably we went too far down the rabbit hole of talking about production worthy, but that's the thing that people care about, right? They want to know, can I use this thing to release something? But the intention for me was to build a fun tool, right? That wasn't serious and just something that worked properly. So yes, absolutely. Next week, I will steer it back and just build something that's fun. And get it working properly so we can all get hands on it and test it. I've been adding a few little improvements just as we went along, and I think you can't really avoid the need to log in to kind of store, personal things. Now we've got profiles where we can save stories that are for this user. And we did at least test it working in the comic book, 1 out of 4 at least.
I think it's a great idea as well, Stefano. I love it. The idea that you could actually generate, because I don't know if when I was a kid, my brother got given a printed book, a storybook, sort of magical storybook, and it was beautiful, about a magician who nowadays I think it'd be a bit worrying, but he basically came and visited my brother at night and took him on a magic journey, but his name was in throughout the story. So he and Jonathan did this and this and this. And it felt so magical that there was a storybook with my brother in it.
Yeah.
So just something that can create something like this, where what I'd want to see is who are the protagonists, and you put the child's name into the story, and then you say what's the magical creature? Is it a dragon? Is it whatever, and then see what it generates, and then to visualize it. That's just fabulous.
Well, there we go. We've got the skeleton of that. Maybe if it's the same kind of group on next week, we can iterate on that, because I started doing something that we'd create the story, and what we would do is take that idea, Rob, and we would add in those, how would we take what you just described and put that into some sort of UI in here? Like, how could we define, do we need a protagonist thing? Do we need the lead character, and we put in a name there, and we generate a story on the back, and we put in,
and then the formatting is really important, isn't it? Because it's like what Stefano said, I want to be able to have this on the iPad for my child. It's like, well, you get PDFs that you can slide over and the page turns, so it feels like it's a page turn, and you get to see the next picture. So there's legs in that as an app on its own. I really love. So I'd be interested to see, actually, if we were to meet as a team who were vibe coding, sort of peer reviewing each other, how would this develop? Because what we've seen is, there's all sorts of problems in Lovable, but there's a lovely idea. How do we nurture this into something that is really fun to use, even if it's not,
Why don't we work together and make it happen, guys?
Yeah.
Well, let's do it next week. If you can jump on the call next week.
The worst that we can get is to learn Lovable. The best we can get is one day to connect to whatever was GitHub, but there are so many potential. Imagine tomorrow you come back from your holidays and you upload pictures and you tell it, create a story about what we just experienced, and your kid can relive your holidays with you in a different way. I mean, you can go anywhere.
I mean, what's interesting is, so I look at that, what Lovable's created, and it was like at first like, wow, that's really cool. But as a UI designer, that's what I did for 20 years. I used to design interfaces and user experiences. What I would almost do is like, well, if I went away and came up with some, just simple initial designs, can I feed that to Lovable and go, this is what I've designed. Can we wire this up and make it work? Because I think the user journey would be quite different to it's very easy, straight in, but actually,
okay, well, that's perfect.
The human elements kind of got lost in that.
I completely agree. So I reckon what we do next week is we carry on. There's a few different people joining next week, but they can just jump into the project we're already doing. And let's just pad this out. If you want to go away and do some sketches of how you think it should look, happy to feed that in before the week.
I mean, my challenge is if I was working with a developer, all right, before I even started a project, we would spend more time thinking about what the project should be and what we want it to do before touching the screen or the mouse. We'd sketch things out, we'd do stuff, have a collaborative powwow and go, what do we want it to do? Rather than just writing in the first prompt and seeing what it comes out with and then working with it that way. It seems a little bit back to front. I would kind of ideate first, collaboratively, get this brilliant hive mind working. You know, we've got Stefano's got a kid who's literally wanting to listen to stories. What do we do there? And then how do we start simply and then add to it? Something
that's
like
fantastic. And that's a great way to end, because it all comes back to that first prompt. And you need to know, and you need to have designed that first prompt well to get you to where you think you want to be, and then iterate on that. I mean, in this case, obviously, we just went in with a very basic prompt and it gave us something, and we can build on that. I love this. So I'm totally up for next week carrying on with this idea.
I can join next week.
If in the meantime anyone wants to kind of drop, you've got a link to the whiteboard. That is exactly what that's for. That's our place to sketch. That's our place to ideate and build on and come up with storyboards or whatever it may be. If Rob, you've got an idea for an improved UI and a user flow, we can upload some images into here and see and get it to redesign it based on that. Love it. And yeah, a really nice product. And I've got a couple of kids too that I can test it on as well. So yeah, let's. But I do think it is important, and it's the thing that people care about is like, what can I get out of this tool? Or like, what can I get out of vibe coding? And the fact that dominated a lot of this session means that it's important, and it is an important consideration. Like, don't get caught down the build trap. If you are intending to launch something at the end of it, you need to know what the steps are to take what you're building on here and turn it into reality. And it's not quite there yet is the key thing at the moment that we've highlighted. Yeah. But it is a fantastically powerful tool for, you know, everything that Rob just described and us building together. That's exactly what it's for.
Great. Awesome. I'm going to have to go, but really nice to meet you all. And I look forward to seeing hopefully most of you next week.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.